Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 41 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League Show podcast. I'm your host, the self-proclaimed FPL Guru, Alex Rex. Joining me today is the usual suspect of Scott Williams and last year's All in Football podcast, Fantasy Premier League Cup champion, Barry Stokes. Baz, thank you for joining us, and how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you ever so much for stepping in and joining us in Mr. Hughes' absence. Scott, you got a bit of a nosebleed, I think.
Yeah, it's going all right, isn't it? It's gone from being a potential horrendous game week to I'm not quite sure what I'm doing up there, to be honest with you. It's a bit nerve-wracking now, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's gone well.
30 points off the top of the league. Well done to Nicola Tomlinson, going back top of the league with a massive score of 98 points this week. 567 total. Jeff Belcher right behind 551. And you, Scott Williams, 537. 30 points off the top with a game week score of 95. Manager of the week, and I can't then not mention David Bird in fourth. Well done, Dave. And manager of the week is in fifth, which is David Tomlinson with Tomlinson Terrors. That's it, Tomlinson Terrors. Well done, David, with 105 points. Welcome to the 100 club. Pickford, Cancelo, Trippier, Cody, who's been returning quite well recently. De Bruyne, Gordon, Maddison, Martinelli, Tony, Jesus, and everyone's captain. I mean, who didn't captain? Erling Haaland.
Just two-thirds of the pod.
Two-thirds of this podcast did not captain Erling Haaland. Fun fact for you about Erling Haaland. If you really want to know why I'm doing as bad as I am, I've not captained Erling Haaland for 5 game weeks this week out of the 8 that he's played. He got 6 points in one of them. And then the other 4 game weeks, he got 2 goals and then 3 hat-tricks. Literally never captained him for one of his hat-tricks. So that'll tell you everything you need to know about me languishing down in 37th in the league.
It feels so good when he gets a hat-trick when you captain him.
I bet it does. I mean, I'm still waiting to feel it, considering my the captains I had when he got his hat tricks and the brace got 2 points, 2 points, 1 point, and 3 points. So I've missed out on a total of 70 points from Erling Haaland captains this season. There you go. Good. Well done. So, by the way, Scott Williams is taking the captain section of this week's podcast. I've already passed that responsibility on to him.
I can do it now, mate. Haaland,
yeah, that was it. That was easy. Won't even bother at the end. Follow us on All in Football Pod on Football P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Engage in the content, that'd be great. And don't forget to subscribe to where you get podcasts from, whether that be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, log in and like the videos. Really appreciate you guys doing that. So we're going to crack straight on, really, and we're going to start with Erling Haaland. Scott, your thoughts on Man City assets, and the key question that everyone's asked us is, I know obviously Haaland's captain this week against Southampton. That's ridiculously obvious. Is he perma captain? I'll get his fixtures up for you.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Man City, just different beast on the Haaland out of this season. Some of the goals they're creating, they just wouldn't have scored them last year. I saw a great clip today of literally the same position that De Bruyne put that ball in for, and he was putting it to maybe Jesus last season. And it didn't get there. It didn't go in because Jesus isn't like 6'10" or whatever Haaland is, and essentially a freak of nature. But yeah, they're incredible out there. The amount of chances they're creating, they're just so fun to watch. Like, I agreed with Gary Neville on Monday Night Football. I used to really enjoy Liverpool as the best team to watch because the way they played. But Man City now, they've got the tip-attacker, can't speak, football, but also they've just got that cutting edge now, that just every time they get that ball in and around their Haaland's movement's amazing. And again, if Carragher did a great piece on Monday Night Football, defenders are scared of him. It's the Haaland factor. And leading on to the next question, is he a perma captain? Well, I don't really look at fixtures. I think, right, what's the hardest fixture in the Premier League? Liverpool away, Chelsea away. Am I going to captain him in them games? Yeah. So is he a perma captain right now? Yes, because you've not got Kane, Son, Salah, Diaz. There's no one else in blistering form either. If you had, that's a different question. But for me right now, I would captain them every single game. It doesn't matter who they're playing.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? The Liverpool away game in game week 11 is technically, in previous seasons, the 4 previous seasons probably is the hardest game on the calendar. So Southampton at home, obvious, but the Liverpool away game. Baz, what's your take? I mean, personally, I'll just chip in with this little bit before. I'm never captaining Haaland against Liverpool away, so he's going to get a hat-trick. But I need to try and catch up, and I think everyone's going to be too scared. So I'm going to do it. I've picked my players, so I'm going to go against him. But generally speaking, Baz, what are your thoughts?
Exactly what Scott said. He's basically the number 9 that they've been craving for a couple of years. Like what Scott mentioned, with the creativity that they do, putting balls in box. De Bruyne is one of the best that can whip a ball in and put it on a sixpence. And Haaland's long legs, with his karate kicks, he's always going to get on end of it. So it's a no-brainer to put him as a captain. For a differential, you've got to try and catch up. Guaranteed, he's probably going to get a brace or even a hat-trick or even a couple of assists. It just doesn't fire blanks. It's just easy as that. That's all you can really say.
You're spot on the not firing blanks. Sorry, I got a bit of feedback on you then, Baz. Yeah, you spot on in the not firing blanks. 2 goals, 1 assist, 1 goal, 3 goals, 3 goals, 1 goal, 1 goal, 3 goals, and 2 assists in the same game. The man has returned in every single game. He's exactly what Salah was last season. So, if you're up near the top of the league, or even if you're just in a mid-table position in the league within sort of 50 points of top, don't start trying to go too different at this very moment in time. The man's in amazing form. Captain him and just roll with it, because exactly what Scott says, there's no one else really at the moment who's doing anything that much different. I want to
think as well. Sorry, Baz, go on.
Sorry, go on, Baz.
Yeah, put it this way, I might even captain him on game week 12. He'll probably still score.
He'll probably. Do you know what? He'll outscore my captain. I better get a negative or something.
Probably, yeah. And say I can't say much for Tony. Got 1 point. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think I do still think that this week wasn't a bad week to go against, trying to do something different. And
Even though he's got an hat-trick and got 2 assists.
We can all be exactly. We can all be results orientated, and I actually still think that the game where I made the mistake not to captain Haaland was Forest at home, and I tried to predict Pep's lineup and I went for De Bruyne. Yeah, that's a mistake. Categorically, I should never have done that. That was wrong. But I captained Salah the other time he got a hat trick, and they got 9 goals against Bournemouth, and he got no returns. And the other time, captain Kane against Southampton, they scored 4 goals. Kane didn't get any returns, and City won 2-0. And one was a penalty. Like there's a bit of give and take in it, and a little bit of luck sometimes. But it's the way it goes, isn't it, from time to time. Mid-price midfielders. Are we looking at the best one here on screen, Phil Foden?
Yeah.
Is he the option?
There's one of 2 options for me at the minute, and yeah, him. James Maddison is the other one for me.
I've got Phil Murray down.
Well, both of them are 8.1 million, Maddison and Foden. Foden is second for points for mid-price midfielders. And when we're talking about mid-price midfielders here, we're talking about 6.5 million now to about 10 million in that bracket. So he's got 51 points. The only player to outscore him is Trossard with 52, Maddison with 47. In terms of expected points, only Martinelli is ahead of him with 46.78, and Foden's got 40.92. In terms of assists, he is third behind Saka with 5, Bernardo with 4, and is equal with Kulusevski. In terms of expected assists, he's third behind Martinelli, Ward-Prowse, and then it's himself just ahead of Sterling. So he's top 3 on everything, and he's 8.1 million. And also to reflect on his minutes for podcast listeners, 87, 45, 90, 90, 54, 90, 71, and 74. He seems like a key player in Pep's team. Foden, discuss, lads.
Yeah, he's. I think the most important thing there is if you've got any Man City assets, they're going to have chances Man City attacking assets, they've got a chance to return in every game week. So you're then looking at form and minutes. Like you say, Pep fancies him. He plays he's always started pretty much every game this season. He favours him in that left-hand position, rather than a Mahrez, for instance, rather than when Grealish has been in and out a little bit. So yeah, Foden's class. I genuinely wish I had him in this game week before the game week. Obviously, it was pretty easy to say after the game week, but I fancied him to do something this game week. I think like he's been hitting form. He looks all right for England, I thought, the other night as well. So yeah, he's good. I think there's a case for maybe bringing, if you were to maybe wildcard now, maybe bring Cancelo out, because they have conceded a few goals and he's not been hitting too many attacking returns. I think there's a case of having Foden and Kevin De Bruyne in there. But yeah, he looks great. But I'm not going to be moving away from De Bruyne too sharply.
I wouldn't recommend it either. Other mid-priced midfielders, obviously Sterling at 10 million, but then you've got Bruno Fernandes at 9.2, who's obviously not in the reckoning at this very moment in time. Maddison, then it's just a massive drop from 9.8 to 8.1, isn't it? There's just no midfielders in that middle bracket. But Maddison at 8.1 million, Luis Diaz 8.1, Foden 8.1, and Bowen at 8.1. Let's do Maddison first. I did want to ask a question on Bowen as well. Maddison, are Leicester back, do you think, with this run of fixtures that they've got, and also him as an asset? And I wanted to get both your quick answers on, do you think he should be on the plane to the World Cup if he continues, especially this sort of form?
For me, he should be on a plane. Obviously, I'm a Welshman, so I'm not really that bothered, to be honest. But yeah, he's if you look at the stats, obviously Alex has got up on the screen. It is for a Leicester team that's not really performing. Is doing really well. Defensively, I wouldn't jump on any assets at all, saying that I've got Danny Ward in goal, but only for a cheap option.
Yeah.
But yeah, defensively for Leicester, no, but definitely he's a must-have for Maddison. 8.1. If you can get Foden as well alongside him, it'd be great. But yeah, I'd definitely have him on the plane as well as have him in my team because everything's coming through him. Obviously, I couldn't afford him, so I had to have Barnes. And obviously, Barnes returned with a goal, but obviously, I was trying to get Maddison in my team when I did my wild card last week, but I just couldn't do it. I had to sacrifice someone, and I didn't really want to. So, but obviously, I'm struggling to try and get him back in, but it's one of them. He's got some good run of fixtures, so yeah, definitely one to have or get.
I think we've always looked at when you look at Leicester, and I think we said this last week. You're fine for attacking assets for Leicester. If you go back onto the history there, Al, they've been in a bad run of form, but scored two, scored one, didn't score, but scored two, scored four. It's not like they're not scoring, and they're creating loads of chances. And like we say on this pod all the time, it's the eye test, and especially in that Spurs game, the game week before Man City, before Forest, it looks brilliant, and that was why I brought him in, because he looked great. And the run of fixtures as well, them two married up together. And I thought, you know what, he's looking on it. He's looking back to James Maddison's self. And I couldn't, like I couldn't care less about the defence. I did because I'm Ward this week, so I was sweating that clean sheet. And then when that Dennis nearly scored late on, I was very worried. And honestly, when fantasy football's affecting your life, when you're there sweating a clean sheet for Danny Ward. But yeah,
it's what it's all about, that, Scott. At 4-0 up or whatever it was.
And they're like, blow the whistle, and then they have the free kick right at the end. And I'm like, oh. And yeah, they just wanted to score for us. I was like, why didn't you die? But yeah, the run of fixtures as well is brilliant, isn't it? Even like I would say at this point, even looking ahead to West Ham away, Newcastle at home, there's goals, I think, in those games for him to score as well, potentially. Yeah. So yeah, and I back Baz. I think he should be on the plane. He's done it. If you look at the stats from, I think it's the end of beginning of the last season, he's created the most assists and goals combined for any English player, any English midfielder. So yeah, I think he should be. And it's not like he's not.
Just as well, what he's got is he's got a set piece. if you're not bringing if you're not bringing JWP, then you've got Maddison's set piece price, haven't you? So
yeah,
it's another option.
I think Maddison offers more than James Ward-Prowse to a football team generally, but I think the only thing that might go against Maddison against Ward-Prowse is that Ward-Prowse can probably do a better job in that midfield too, and I think we've got less options in that two than we do in that two players wide of Kane. Well, no, I know, and it's going to be Rice and Bellingham in those positions anyway, and then he's going to have Calvin Phillips if he's fit, but if not, then it's Henderson and who else really in that midfield too. So
plus, James, it's just a cool guy. Get him in there.
He is a cool guy.
He likes darts as well. I was at the darts last night, and I like my darts. He's a cool guy. He's got tattoos. He's got that X factor.
He loves his poker. Plays at Goliath.
That's it. Yeah,
he'd have called with that Jack 4, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he's one of the lads. Just get him on the podcast.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'll reach out to him. I'll reach out to him. And I'll reach out to
Micah
Richards.
There's a chance he could come on this podcast.
There's a chance I'll get Micah to come on the same day as Liam. That's what I'll do. That'll work.
Yeah, we've got connections to Micah, so surely we can get him on.
Yeah, it'll be easy game. Maddison has returned in 5 of his 7 appearances this season, so he's only not returned twice when he's played. He's second for shots overall. He's also second for shots on target, and he's top for shots outside the box in those mid-price midfielders. So he's shown some great prowess. Bournemouth away, Palace at home, Leeds at home, Fulham away, Wolves away, City at home, Everton away, and then West Ham away. Before we move on to your opinion on Wolves, more from a footballing perspective, Scott, Jared Bowen returned for the first time in a little while. What do 14 points against Wolves, and obviously that got Bruno Lage sacked. His first attacking returns of the season. West Ham have been absolutely abysmal going forward, and I'll just look at their XG. They're second bottom in terms of expected goal involvement this season. Only Bournemouth, who are bottom by miles, at 4.34 goals expected in 8 appearances, which is terrible, half a goal a game. West Ham are at 7.74. They've got the worst attack in the league statistically, bar Bournemouth. But did you see Bowen's performance? Did you watch the match of the day? What do you think?
Me personally, he's got the last 2 game weeks. He's had the joint top of shots in the box with 8. So he's definitely one to. It's not shy of having a shot, as we know. With the fixtures coming up as well, I think he's definitely one for a differential. I think he's only owned by 4%. So it's worth, if you're getting rid of Foden and you want to obviously get rid of him, then obviously you're going to put Jared in, aren't you? So it's one of them. But yeah, that's what I think. I think he's back. To be honest, I think
James
missing out on England as well has probably gone right. Actually, yeah, I need to start picking up some form and actually get back into that England setup for World Cup coming in as well. So
yeah. Scotty?
Yeah, I think if James Maddison wasn't a thing, I'd have probably rolled the dice on Bowen, to be honest with you. They've started looking a bit better, West Ham. I must say, I think I've seen him in a couple of games. Sakamacha, the new striker. Yeah, impressed. Thought he played all right against England as well. I think he's good. And I think, Bowen's goal was fantastic that he took against Wolves. He looked really sharp in that game as well. I think West Ham are going to do similar to what Leicester. They're going to start turning it around a bit. I think if looking at those midfielders, let's say Maddison wasn't in that list, I wouldn't have Foden because I've got Kevin De Bruyne. Too many gambles. I'll be probably looking at him, Zaha, or Saka. Although one of your boys is a bit of a shout, Tony.
Anthony.
Yeah. What's a goal?
Yeah, he's a quality player. He's just settling in, and the problem is at the moment for Man United is we've got Everton next, but Everton haven't lost since game week 2, and we'll touch on that in a minute. Newcastle, Spurs, and Chelsea the next 3, and then we've got West Ham, Villa, and then Fulham. I think the time to gamble on Man United will be probably that game week 14, 15, 16. But, he's played 2 matches for us so far as Anthony scored a goal in both of them. So he does look good. And you've just briefly mentioned Wilfried Zaha as one of the most transferred players in this week. He's up to 7.3 million. He's owned by 17.7% of players. He's got the second highest XG, I think it was. I will double check that statistic, but in the Premier League for midfielders this season, and he's got Leeds at home, Leicester away, Wolves at home, Everton away, Southampton at home, West Ham away, Forest away up until the World Cup, and then after the World Cup he's got Fulham at home and Bournemouth away. So I mean, he's somebody that looks.
I'll be honest. That Leeds game scares me now if I hold Zaha.
This one?
Leeds game terrifies me. The way Leeds are playing this season, they will be winding him up no end. And I can see Zaha losing at that game and getting a red card. I called Haaland's red card last week and I was slightly off. I think this is my red card shout of the week.
I love that. Scott's red card shout of the week. Yeah, sorry, highest XG for all midfielders this season is Wilfried Zaha. Apparently, that was something that I read before. But yeah, anyway, sorry, go on, Baz.
Yeah, at home, I can't say. I think that's an awful sharp by Scott, to be honest. At home, I think with obviously his own backing from his crowd. If it was away, then yeah, I probably would say so. But at home, he's going to keep his cool. He's going to play. He's going to play really well.
Watch his space.
If I didn't want Haaland to be captain, then I'd probably back Zaha to be captain.
I might just do it anyway. See if Haaland gets a hat trick.
Yeah, that's how confident I think he is going to perform against Leeds.
We're at that stage now when we're looking at mid-price midfielders where this always happens every season. We were like, which 8 million to go for? We don't really know. Do we go for a premium? You could actually sack off all premiums at this very moment in time. Go Maddison, Foden, Bowen, Zaha, plus one cheap player. And that's more than affordable if you've then got a front line of Haaland. We'll obviously have to wait and see on Mitrovic's injury, but and another cheaper striker that people you're going to play 5 across midfield. You could even go for someone who's a little bit more expensive than like Pereira. But those sort of 4 players, you could quite comfortably be in any team, and they wouldn't be out of place in any side. It was fun watching everyone who decided to back Son, which was just don't get me wrong, he got a hat trick, but he's been really bad the rest of the season.
He barely had a touch in that game.
Yeah,
North London derby.
Terrible. I thought Spurs.
None of Tottenham players did though.
I thought Spurs were really bad, but we'll get onto them in a second with Arsenal. But Scott, at Wolves, obviously Bruno Lage has been fired. What do you make of that? And then what do you also make of Wolves' chances moving forward, etc.?
Yeah, I don't think they got enough Portuguese players in. I think that was where they went wrong.
George Mendes.
My dad
bye.
My dad made me laugh the other day watching the Wolves West Ham game, and he watches a game of football, but he's not too engrossed into it. And they were doing the lineups, and he was flabbergasted by how many Portuguese flags there were. And I was like, "This is Wolves for you." But yeah, it's been. Do you know what? I went to the first game, Leeds Wolves. I was impressed by Wolves. I thought, do you know what? We've got some tricky players. They're looking like they've got the Podence. They've got what's he called?
Neto,
thank you. Podence, Neto, and I've got them with the new boys coming in like Guedes, and that Mateus Nunes as well. I thought, do you know what? They look quite exciting going forward. They haven't, they've had Jimenez out with injury, etc. But they look quite excited going forward. But they're complete opposite. They've been boring. I think it's got to a point where Bruno Lage has sort of ran out of options potentially. He obviously had a game plan when he had Jimenez before his bad injury, and that was it. They had the focal old school number 9 up there, and he was absolute flames for him. When he had Traore bombing up and down as well. They look like a different team, but yeah, they've gone really boring. I think they do need to freshen up. They need that new Portuguese manager coming in and freshen it up a bit, because I think they were a really exciting prospect there. No offense to a Burnley. I feel like we always go to a Burnley or a Stoke in years gone by, where it would be a bit like, you know what, they are what they are. They're just going to be that kind of solid team that potentially might stay up. I think they've got some really exciting players there, Wolves. So I think with the right manager, there can be an exciting team to watch. But at the minute, when I see Wolves on TV, I'm not jumping to watch the game. Put it that way.
Baz, any thoughts on Wolves?
I think the Conor Cody loan signing was unbelievable. I couldn't believe he went. I thought he's solid in that back three. Obviously, he's got experience for help the young ones go. And it proved on his last game, he played Pedro Mendes. Not Pedro. I think his name now. Yeah, he played him centre back in middle. I think. Yeah, Ruben Neves.
What a throwback Pedro Mendes was.
Exactly. Yeah, get him on next pod. But yeah, Ruben Neves at centre back. I'm thinking, hold on a minute, what's he doing here? I think he knew one of them. It was his last one. He's put names in art and gone, right, you're playing centre back.
Well, at least he put Podence there. That'd have been a laugh, wouldn't
it? Oh yeah, that's it. He could probably
same amount as Martinez, isn't
it? So it was one of them where I did some research on Wolves, and they've got 24 points since Traoré went to Barcelona. So I think they're missing that raw pace up front. It's just an outlet. It just gets it away. And I think when Wolves don't have him playing, they haven't got that raw pace to get out of jail. And it's always coming back on him. I think that's an issue where Wolves have struggled. Yeah, they've got these creative players, but just to get by someone and relieve the pressure, I think Traoré does that really well, but it doesn't look like his face fits there no more. Maybe he just wants out. Well, he realised what's actually happening. So that's my take on Wolves, really.
I think
Too
the
many
thing
foreign
is,
sides.
well, with his with what's going on at Wolves as well, we talk about creative players. I mean, they've got the third worst XG in the league. Only West Ham and Bournemouth have got less. They've only scored 3 goals this season. They've conceded 9 actually, which is only 4 teams have conceded more goals. Conceded less goals. Everton with the best defence in the league with 7. Connor Cody on there. And then Newcastle, Brighton and Arsenal with 8. And then, Wolves have conceded the same amount of goals as West Ham, Liverpool and Man City. If you were to say that at the end of the season, Wolves have conceded the same amount of goals as Man City and Liverpool, you wouldn't exactly think that they'd be down at the bottom fighting relegation, but they've only scored 3 goals. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. I agree they need a freshen up. Arsenal, top of the league and having a laugh. Personally, obviously I've said a few things about Arteta in the past, but I defy an Arsenal fan to tell me that they don't think that Arteta was 1 or 2 games away from getting sacked at the beginning of last season. Obviously they beat Norwich 1-0. I think they edged Burnley 1-0 before they won that North London derby emphatically, and that turned around their season. But if they'd have lost, or if they'd have not won against either Norwich or Burnley, I don't think Arteta would still be in there. And he's turned it round, and they're absolutely flying. And I only watched a bit of the North London derby, and I want to get your take on it in a second, Scott. But I feel like that game felt like, to me, like we're looking at Arsenal. Don't get me wrong, I think City are going to win the league. But it felt to me like that was Arsenal going, we're favourites for second. Now, we want to try and push City all the way if we can do. But Scott, what was your feelings on it?
Yeah, I wasn't sure about Arsenal coming into that game. I think I said on the pod last week, I think the wheels are going to come off a little bit, and they will at some point. Like every team in the Premier League, no one just has a perfect season. But that was the most impressed I've been with Arsenal all season against a really top quality side in Spurs. They looked really solid, and I don't think you can say that about Arsenal the last many years now. Even at the end of Wenger, they were leaking goals. I think you got to go all the way back to probably when you had like Tony Adams at the back there, players like that. They look really solid. They look like Grant Xhaka. Wow, what's a player, by the way. He looks like a different player, more attacking player this season as well. He's certainly someone that I've gone for in the fantasy draft this week. Because he just looks like he's going to be returning. And there is, that front three of Jesus, Martinelli, and Saka, really good. Certainly, if you look at front threes, they're outperforming. I would say absolutely outperforming Liverpool's front three this year, which you wouldn't have touched last season. So, yeah, they look good. They look really good, really impressive. It will just be interesting to see how they come out of these next few games. I think the next game's massive. Liverpool at home. if they win that, I agree with you. The favourites for second. But if they lose that, I think Leeds is. I don't think Leeds is in the 2 green away. Maybe I'm biased living in Leeds, but I think that's a really tough game.
I think it's a 3, isn't it? I think it's a grey, rather than a 2.
I think so. And I think any away game in the Premier League is tough. But yeah, I'd be interested to see how they get on. But yeah, well done, Arteta. I mean, they spent a lot of money. Let's not just say it's not when Wenger, when they were moving to the Emirates a few years ago, when everyone's spending millions and he was making money in the transfer window. It's funny, really quickly. I know I've spoken a lot here, but I've been watching the Premier League years last few weeks, and just I'm on the Wenger out years, the years at the minute, and it just make you really laugh and think he was literally Wenger out. There were 3 points off the top of the league. Pep's against like Pep City. It's like he spent no money. It's like it's ridiculous how fickle fans were. But yeah, I enjoy watching Arsenal.
Baz?
I think Thomas Partey is basically like a new Patrick Vieira for him. He's solid. Nothing gets through him. That's why Xhaka looks like he's playing like he plays for Switzerland. He gets forward. He's starting to create stuff. At 5.1, it's a good little one to have if you want to obviously get him in your team. He's third top point scorer for Arsenal as well in FPL as well. So that's just not. He's doing better than Saka. I think Saliba's the best, Martinelli, and then it's Xhaka. So then obviously Jesus as well. But yeah, it's good for a 5.1 midfielder. So and the thing that I'm worried about with Arsenal is if they get some injuries. I think if Jesus gets injured, you got Nketiah coming in. He's not on the same level as Jesus because he's looked phenomenal playing. He's not got enough points for me for obviously how he's playing. He should be getting at least more bonus points because he's played that good. So I think Partey is key for him. I think when he's out of the squad, they look vulnerable.
I completely agree, Baz. Sorry, I got some more feedback there. But I completely agree, Baz. I couldn't agree more with you. I think Thomas Partey is the key player in that team. If he's not there, then Granit Xhaka he's got a long way to go with me personally to redeem himself because, he was the player that 2-footer tackled that against City in the 3rd game of last season, got himself sent off. He's let his team down time and time again over the years, applauded the fans for having every right to boo him for being rubbish and showing a bad attitude on the pitch. I'm not a fan of Xhaka, but it's got to be said that with Partey in the team, he's playing a role that's a lot better for him. And he has been a different player this season. I completely agree with what you've been saying. And, fingers crossed, as long as Partey stays in the team for whatever reason, hopefully that means that Xhaka can push on. And that, I think that's a key man. So, I think if we had to call it right now, if they get a draw against Liverpool, maybe even beat them, then they'll be the favourites for second. Everton, Scott. Everton are unbeaten since game week 2. They've got the best defence in the league, and no one's really talking about them in terms of the Premier League or fantasy assets. What's your take on Mr. Lampard's team at the moment? Have you watched much of them? And do you believe that we've got assets in terms of Cody, Pickford, Gray, Gordon, whatever there might be?
Say Gordon.
I've got Scott. That's why I've come to Scott first, Baz.
I think first of all, well done, Frank Lampard. As a non-Leeds United fan living in Leeds, he gets a lot of stick. But you've just got to say, well done, really well done. We're not hearing a lot about him because they're not exactly spectacular games are involved in. 2-1, 1-0, 0-0, 1-1, 1-1, 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 1-0. Has been the order of the game week so far. But yeah, defensively they look great, don't they? They're keeping a few clean sheets. Connor Cody he's been popping up with a couple of goals and a couple of chances and looked dangerous from set pieces as well. When you've been looking at him, it's just a shame. Patterson, that was a great enabler for you to have it right back until he got injured. I still think Gordon's a great shout. Anyone worried that he didn't play last game? He wasn't dropped. He was ill, so he didn't start that game. He will be starting football games. He is their best attacking player. So I'm not worried about that. He just had a slight illness last week. That's why he was on the bench. But yeah, I think it looked really good. I wouldn't look at someone like a Neil Mopé. I wouldn't look too much attacking. I'd be looking at maybe a cheaper asset at the back because, like I say, they're not involved in spectacular games. I think Lampard's looked at the team and went, right, the way we're going to stay up and progress, I need to work on my defence first. And he's obviously done that. Like I said, I'll just reiterate what Baz said. I think Everton bringing in Cody was a great bit of business. And, he's got a really experienced partnership with Tarkowski at the back, with Pickford there. I mean, that's super solid. That's as solid and experienced as it gets in the Premier League. So I would be potentially looking at assets, but I wouldn't go any more attacking than Gordon.
When you think about it, he's done what like Arteta's done and also what Ten Hag's done at Man United. I know we can talk about the 6-3 against City, but I'm not that. To be honest, I'm not worried about that game. A completely different back four. United's was Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire, and Shaw. Now he's changed it to Dalot, Varane, Martinez, and Malacia. Yeah. Lampard's done exactly the same. He's gone from Coleman, whether it be Keane, Mina, Holgate, whoever was at the left back for them as well.
Mikalenko, wasn't it?
Well, before it was someone else, wasn't it? Whereas now it's Cody.
Well, it was Digna, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, Dini sold Dini, didn't he? Of course, yeah, you're right there, Baz. Dini, and now he's gone for Patterson, Tarkowski, Cody, and Mikalenko. He's just changed the back four, and he's brought in, was it? I can't remember what he's called. Onana.
I was about to say he looks fantastic. By the way,
he's brought in a holding midfield player. Who can do a bit of box to box, be a bit combative in midfield, and I think he's just signed in the right places, and the players have done quite well. Baz, have you got a take on Everton before we scoot on to their Merseyside rivals?
They got Idris Gueye as well. Obviously, he was there before. He's basically the anchor man. He's like a Partey for him. And then obviously the guy that you just had on screen then, Onana. He's a box to box. He'll just get up and down. He's a workhorse. But yeah, attacking wise, obviously from game week 12 to game week 12 onwards, obviously, or maybe even 13 if you don't fancy him at Newcastle away. I think attacking, you've got to look. DCL's coming back from injury. Lack of fitness, so he should be. So, yeah, but obviously you've got Gray and Gordon whipping in balls in for him.
Alex will get him in captain, don't worry.
That's what I'll do.
I'll probably will and all. Tony.
But I agree with you, Baz. Palace at home, game week 13. Fulham away, game week 14. Leicester at home, and then Bournemouth away, 15-16. Completely agree. Fixtures look good.
Yeah, I wouldn't obviously jump on them now. Defensively, it's up for a debate on that one with obviously the 3 fixtures that are coming up. And also what Lampard's done as well is it'd be interesting to know how long the ball's actually in the pitch for the 90 minutes, because the mystic arts of kicking it out and delaying tactics and stuff like that. Obviously, it was on TalkSport for a bit, and obviously Lampard was getting some grief off that. But it's sensible. They can't score when it's in stands, as the old-fashioned saying. So, yeah, I think defensively they look sound. Pickford's playing really well. He's not dropping any. He hasn't got Poppadom fans no more. So for me, could be England's back 3: Pickford, Tarkowski, Cody.
Yeah, that's from a Welsh fan that are playing us in the World Cup, isn't it?
I mean, Cody's definitely on the plane. Cody's got to be on the plane, hasn't he?
But yeah, he's got to be. If he plays the back 3, Cody's got to be. They play back three. They know it. They understand it. So, but yeah, Lampard's doing a great job. I think, like Arteta as well, we forgot to mention that he had a lot of time to build his squad. And I think if Lampard gets time with Everton, they're not shy of opening the purse strings either. So yeah, I think watch out Everton in a couple of years' time. I'm not saying they're going to be up there with Man City, but they'll be there or thereabouts for Europa League.
Scott, I want to talk about the Merseyside rivals, Liverpool. What is going wrong at Liverpool?
Bad manager. Time to get rid of him. I think get Lampard in. That'd be a laugh on it. That'd be amazing if that happened. Or Bielsa, just for no. Yeah, again, anyone that likes football analysis, I know you do this, Al. Monday Night Football is fantastic for breaking games down. And I'm not going to pretend I came up with what I'm about to say because I didn't. I believe it was Neville that came up with it. But yeah, if you look at the two attacking for their own good, a couple of there's a reason that teams are scoring on the counter because you've got Robertson or Tsimikas as it is at the minute, and Trent just bombed right up the field. But then you've also got players such as Henderson when he's playing, Fabinho. That those kind of like holding midfielders that are like ahead of the ball almost and in the area. So when that ball breaks, they've got like just Matip and Verge just absolutely exposed there. So there's no wonder that these goals are getting conceded because they're far too attacking the way they set up and the way they bomb and gamble on players, especially early on in games. What we loved about Liverpool was at the start of games, they obviously put the pressure on the players. Now, again, they've not been doing that as much this season. They've been giving players and time to like turn and just play the ball out. But I don't think there's any teams conceding more first half goals than Liverpool this season. They're so leaky, and the best player is not returning. So when those two things come hand in hand, you're going to be struggling. Mo Salah's not looked like himself at all. He got a goal last night in the Champions League, but it was a penalty. He didn't particularly look great. Other than that, I still think Diaz looked a lot better than him last night. Trent got a free kick, but we've never said not that he doesn't return attacking. It's his defensive. I must say, if Rangers had a few of the players on earlier on in the game, the players with pace, I think Liverpool would have been in more trouble because they looked quite good that last 10 minutes, Rangers, when they had them pacey players on the counter. But yeah, they're just poor defensively, and when the best players, like I said, not returning, it's not a good recipe, really, is it?
Baz, what's your thoughts on Liverpool? Trent obviously has been talked about quite a lot, but just generally, what do you think's been going wrong for them?
Quite similar to what Scott's saying. The formation that Liverpool play with is near enough like a 2-3-5. You've got your Matip and Virgil that stay back. You've got your three midfielders, and then your fullbacks are near enough like wingers. But what they're struggling with is the high press. It looks lethargic. Like on goes, but it's like half-hearted. It's like, oh, I have to go because Jurgen Klopp wants me to play this way. He's not like, and no one's backing it up, and it's getting through the midfield too quick, and then the high line's too high, and next thing you know, ball's over the top. They're out of position. They tried to obviously catch them offside. They haven't. They're running onto it, and it's just basically free for all. I think just how they score, it's quite vulnerable to a quick counter attack. You should have proved it with Brighton. They obviously tactics with obviously Potter in charge, but now they've obviously got the new manager in, and it didn't really change much really. The tactics wise from Brighton was literally contain, counter-attack. And Liverpool very vulnerable to that because of the lack of high press. They look lethargic. The injuries in midfield haven't helped. I think they panicked loan to get Mello in, and it hasn't worked. And just lack of confidence. And it proves it with the front three. I think, as Scott mentioned, Luis Diaz is looking the better option. Obviously, you've got Firmino as well, but he's very sporadic with his play. So Yeah, that for me is what's killing Liverpool. Is the high press. It's not as intense as it has been in the past, and they're not winning the back a lot higher up the pitch. If you look at Man City when they're doing the high press, they win it really quick, and they move it quick as well. So yeah, that the high press is the main thing what they struggle with.
A few stats as well for anybody who wants to look into to Salah, just comparing this season to last season per start. Obviously, his points, his goals, and assists are all down. His expected points for fantasy managers is down 2 points per game, but he's still expected to get 6 points a game, which is like De Bruyne territory. Some points, still only 10 points behind De Bruyne, but his XG is nearly half. His big chances are 0.86 compared to 1.13 last season. He's doing nearly a shot in the box less a game. He's having nearly a shot on target less a game. He's having a shot generally less a game. Touches in the box, he's having less per game. He's not playing any through balls. He's actually playing, though, more final third passes. He's putting in a similar amount of crosses. He's creating nearly double the amount of chances. But not big chances. So he's creating a lot of half chances, and his expected assist is basically the same. So it feels like he's trying to almost create a little bit more than what he was doing last season, rather than actually, shooting the ball.
He's not got confidence, has he?
No, he's definitely lacking confidence at the moment. Firmino's numbers are absolutely mad, by the way, Baz. Like, the man's insane. He's got 47 points so far this season. Let me just read out his points. 1, 0, because he didn't play. 2, 22, 9, 1, and 12. Like, he either bangs or just doesn't bother. It feels like Firmino. But if he... Firmino is 7.9 because he's wearing that badge on his top. Like, Firmino should just be a £6.5 million striker, and then everyone would be really actually considering him, because he's too rotation proof and too rotation at risk of rotation. And he's it's just, I think it's hilarious. He's the perfect draft player because he'll just bang for you ridiculously, or then go back. But for Liverpool, I again agree, Scott. I think the analysis of Monday Night Football is fantastic. If anyone's got any time to watch it, you should do that. But Arsenal away, City at home next to, don't touch him still for me. And then they've got a run of West Ham, Forest, Leeds, Spurs, and then Southampton. We should all be, still bearing them in mind and not totally writing them off. And obviously we've touched on Brighton as well. Final thing wanted to touch on before we wrap up and look at the fixtures. Same final thing is something that you mentioned, Baz, in terms of player ownership and people that are owned by sort of over 15-20% of players. And you were looking at who you think was essential within that list. Any thoughts on the sort of, how many players was there? Was it 19, something around then in that level, over 20% owned? What was your take on their essentialness? And who do you think we could go without, and who do you think you could potentially replace them with?
Well, essentially, you obviously got you have your Haaland, Trippier for me, with the run of games. You've got your cheap alternatives always going to be there. Your Williams and your Pereira, your Ward as well for a keeper, because he's not going to play, but he's not going to be your starting keeper. But he's always a nice little backup. So he's going to start. For me to get rid of is, I think, Martinelli for me. He's not really doing as well as he has done. His form's right down 3.5 compared to everyone else around him. I look at getting him out and getting a Trossard or a Coutinho potentially. Or Saint Maximin, because they've got a few good games coming up. Pascal Gross as well. Obviously, he's playing a bit deeper now in the new formation, because Trossard's come from wing back to attacking midfielder. So that's why I recommended him. You could go for a Rodrigo, or you could go for a Harrison. You could also look at a Conor Gallagher. I think Potter trusts the young players, and obviously came on and scored against Palace. I think it was written in the stars. to do that. Perisic as well. If you haven't got Trippier, put him in, and then you could potentially look at Cucurella for an outsider. Gabriel Jesus could get rid of him, but it just looks too frightening to do that. Then you've got your Tony and Mitrovic that you could potentially look at getting rid of as well. You could look at Danny Welbeck. Could be an option. Skamaka. And also Martial came on and did well. So that could be an option, or an Alexander Isak or a Wilson. So yeah, they're the ones that I would say is a potential differential to them. I know it's a long list.
No. I think you said the right things there, Baz. I mean, in terms, especially when I look at someone like Callum Wilson, I think Callum Wilson's a great shout. If you're going to have something a bit different, I'm considering bringing him this week in this week for either Mitrovic or Isak, depending on their injuries. But Brentford, Man United, Everton, next three, just someone who's potentially a little bit different. My take on this is that when I look at all these players who are over 20% owned, is that I'd say like basically none of them are essential except for Haaland, because there's just so many of them. There's 20 players here, and you've Haaland. When you're looking for these high ownership players, none of them are massively hurting you other than Haaland, as long as you've got 6 or 7 of these players in your team, and then or maybe even 8 of them, and then you can have a look to build up around you. And yeah, you are looking at the next player, the next big thing to come in. And Zaha, when you're looking at the next fixtures, someone like Zaha for me at 17.7% owned, he's someone who you'll be looking at bringing. Maddison still only 12.9% owned, which is still very low. And generally a differential for someone in my position when I've got a rank of 5 million. Maddison's a differential at 12%. So that's still not bad. Foden, 11.4%, someone that you could be looking at. Even when you look further down the list in terms of defenders, I know United didn't do well against City, but Dalot at 4.5 is going to play. He's obviously first choice. And then there's other ones further down. Anthony at 5.9 as well. I agree as well with Martial as a striker. Ten Hag set up in pre-season with Martial as his number 9. And he wants to set up with Martial in that position generally, if he can do, with Rashford, Anthony, Sancho, and Elanga rotating either side, and Ronaldo being almost rotating with Martial if he can do. And that's sort of the front 6 players that Ten Hag seems to want to play regularly. You're looking at the ones as well that are quite highly owned, and you'd recommend to have someone like Reece James with their fixtures. He's performed one of the worst out of all of those guys. He's only got 1 more point than Trent Alexander-Arnold. I mean, the only players that have got less points than him are Williams and Ward in that group. And they're the 2 enablers, and that's why they're so highly owned. But someone like James might be someone who's going to start getting a few more points. But yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be worrying too much about it. Scotty, any take on that before we move on to the fixtures?
One must own Haaland. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In terms of ownership in the top 10K, I think there's only 80 managers that don't have him, and they're all the luckiest people alive, to be honest. So how you're in the top 10K without Haaland, I have no idea. So fixtures for the weekend, deadline 1:30. Game week 10, Saturday the 8th of October.
What's the crap there? I'm fuming. There's no early kickoff on Saturday. What is going on?
Don't know.
Come on, Alex.
No idea, to be honest.
You can get onto that, mate, and let me know.
Well, in terms what I don't I mean, the reason why is because there's nobody who is eligible to play the early kickoff who obviously isn't playing in Europe this season. Like it must be the turn of a team that's playing in Europe. I mean, Bournemouth, Leicester could easily be an early kickoff. I don't really understand why it wouldn't be.
There's no Championship game, or League One, or League Two early kickoff.
It'd be a women's game, I'd assume. Be like a Women's Super League game, I'd have thought.
It's
probably.
National League as well, mate. Don't forget about that.
Oh, are you early? Are you on telly this week?
No, we're not.
Great result last night, 2-2 with Oldham.
Should have won.
I know. We wouldn't know that. You 2-1 up, weren't you?
We're 1-0 down every game, mate. We just give them a call head start.
Oh, sunny, scunny. Bournemouth, Leicester, Chelsea, Wolves, Man City, Southampton, Newcastle, Brentford, all 3 o'clock kickoffs. Then we've got a feast of televised games. We've got Brighton, Spurs, which is the evening kickoff on Saturday. Palace, Leeds, Sky Sports game on Sunday at 2:00, followed by Arsenal-Liverpool on Sky Sports. And then we've got a Sunday evening game, Everton against Man United, BT Sport. West Ham Fulham's 2:00 on Sunday as well. And we've got Monday Night Football, Forest again on Monday Night Football against Aston Villa, hoping for a different result. Relatively obvious. Haaland captain. Don't even need to ask anyone any questions about that, really.
All I was saying, like, if you don't captain Haaland, delete fantasy football, you shouldn't be playing it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, come on. If he does get rotated, let's talk about vice captains.
Well, if he does get rotated, he's probably still going to come on for 20 minutes and score anyway.
Yeah, you never would be surprised with it. But you'd still captain him. But I'm talking about vice captains. They should get your vice captain right this week. So if we're looking at vices, anyone really.
I'd probably go a bit Maverick and go like Reece James. You know,
James at Wolves. Why not? If they've got a new manager, I'm going to go put
James
it on
or
Sterling.
James for me.
Yeah, James or
Zaha
James
for me.
Yeah, Zaha. There you go. So we've got Zaha, we've got Maddison, we've got Reece James or Sterling, someone like that. And I think you'll all own one of those players who's listening to this. I'd assume as your vice captain.
Bowen, if you've got Bowen.
Yeah, Fulham at home. True. Yeah. Another vice captain option. God, we're throwing these around. There's loads of them.
We're not going to do it anyway. Well, he's going to be vice, as you mentioned. So
we're talking about vice captains after Haaland. So
exactly, yeah.
And if you do want to go vice and you still want to stick with City, then whoever your City asset is that you want to put in there, go Phil Foden. If you want to do so, and then looking at fixtures, just moving forward, looking at the FDR before we wrap up. Palace are top, followed by Bournemouth, and then you've got your West Ham, who we've covered. Fulham, keep an eye out for Mitrovic's injury. Obviously important to know what what's gonna come back from there. Spurs have been a bit Spursy at the moment after a great start, so be a bit careful about those guys. And then we've obviously discussed Everton, Wolves, and Liverpool. And beyond. So, Barry, thank you ever so much for joining us this week. Really appreciate your time. No, it's hopefully not the last time we'll see you on the podcast. We'll get you on a few more times, I'd hope, this season. Scott, thank you ever so much for being an ever present. I appreciate it. Thank you to every single person who's tuned in, contributed, sent you questions, been a part of it, and also taking part in our mini league. Thank you to every single person. And I want to give a really special shout out this week, if that's okay, to Neil Ladd, Len Deacon, and Jack Tomlinson. Because if it wasn't for you three, I'd be bottom of my own league for my own podcast with my own team that I created. So thanks, lads. I love you all lots. I hope you're all listening. I'll wrap up from there and see you all next week. Bye for now.